What is going on, guys? ESG here, back with a new FPL video. In today's video, I'm going to be going through my updated draft and some of the changes that I have made since my last update. As always, if you do enjoy the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. And with that being said, let's get into the team. So to start off with, we've got the goalkeeper and the defence, as well as the bench. So in net, we've stuck with Sanchez, just because at the time that I'm recording this, Sanchez is still that number one keeper, or is looking like he's going to be that number one keeper for Chelsea. As I'm recording, they've not brought in another keeper to compete with him yet. That could change later on down the line before game week 1, and I am eyeing up other goalkeepers like Dean Henderson, Verbruggen, or even Sells from Nottingham Forest, because Forest fixtures are actually really nice. But for now, I'm going to keep Sanchez though, just because he is looking like that number one. Coming down to the defence, we've stuck with Anderson and we've stuck with Gvardiol, but the big change is Trent Alexander-Arnold has come in instead of Robinson from Fulham. So I've brought Trent in as that premium asset because I can't ignore Liverpool's fixtures, and I think to start the season, the fixtures are that nice. I want a Liverpool defender in there, and I'm not convinced about other defenders' game time apart from Van Dijk. And I don't really want to be bringing in Van Dijk for 6 million. I'd rather bring in Trent, who's going to probably get me a lot more attacking returns. And he's only 1 million more than Van Dijk as well. If we think about Liverpool's fixtures, they've got Ipswich as that first game and then Brentford as the second game. Then the fourth and fifth game, they've got Bournemouth as the fifth and Nottingham Forest as the fourth. So I can see quite a few attacking returns from Trent, as well as some clean sheets. So I think he'll be a really good asset to have. And he's not too highly owned either, so he is a little bit of a differential compared to some other players in here. Moving on to Anderson, I've stuck with Anderson because from Palace, I wanted a Palace defender who can rotate with Konsa, who I've still got, who's on the bench. But I feel like Anderson from Palace is the better attacking threat from set pieces, because Gahey for the same price doesn't tend to get forward as much, and I didn't really want to spend 5 million on Munoz. So I went with Anderson just for that attacking threat from set pieces. And the fixtures that Palace have, I can see 1 or 2 clean sheets in there, so he could be good for defensive returns as well as a couple of attacking returns. Gvardiol in there at 6 million. I was, again, between Gvardiol and Saliba, and I just feel like Gvardiol's fixtures are a lot nicer than Saliba's to start the season. Gvardiol has Ipswich in game week 2. They've got West Ham in there, and I think they have Brentford in there as well. So I can see 3 clean sheets there already. I know they have Chelsea to start and Arsenal in game week 5, which probably won't be a clean sheet, but for that 5th game, I could easily bring in Konsa instead of Gvardiol. I just want Gvardiol in there for those middle 3 fixtures from game week 2 to 4, because I think he'll play more of that left wing-back role like he was towards the end of last season. And he can get a few goals, maybe assists. And in those games especially, I can see a clean sheet coming. So it'll be really good to have a Man City defender to get a return from that. If we look at the bench, I do still have Konsa because I wanted that Villa defender. I'm not quite sure who I want from Villa yet, but Konsa at 4.5, if he is going to be starting the majority of games, then 100% I will be keeping him because he rotates really nicely with the other players that I have. And then I've brought in Barco from Brighton. With Estepinian being injured, it is looking like Barco might be that starting left back. And if he is, some of the fixtures that Brighton have look really promising. And I think Barco could probably get forward and get a couple of assists from that left back role. So as a 4 million defender who is a potential starter for the start of the season, then he's really nice to have in the on the bench, but can also come on if somebody either doesn't play or if I have an injury somewhere and I need somebody else to come on, and Barco has a nice game, then 100% I will be bringing him on. So moving on to the midfield, we've brought in 2 changes into the midfield, but I've also kept 3 players that have been in every draft that I've made so far. So starting off with Mo Salah, coming in at 12.5 as that premium asset, I can't ignore the fixtures that Liverpool have, especially Ipswich away for that first game, which is a newly promoted side, and then also Brentford in the Nottingham Forest in the and Bournemouth in there. I feel like out of all the Liverpool attackers, Salah is the one to go for, as he's having a full pre-season, whereas others aren't. The likes of Darwin Núñez, Cody Gakpo, Luis Diaz, they all went on late runs in the Copa America and the Euros. whereas Salah's not had any international tournament. So unlike those other three, Salah is on the preseason tour in America and will get a lot of game time under his belt. And once the season starts, I think with the new system that Slot is implementing, Salah will be the one to hit the ground running. He's already on penalties, we know that. So that's, if he gets a penalty, it's almost a guaranteed goal. But then he'll also be more impactful in open play and getting goals. I know last season he fell off a little bit, but even with 28 starts, he got 30 goal involvements, which was really nice to see. And I think he'll get more than that this season, and he'll start almost every game. Moving on to Eze at 7 million, I've brought Eze in instead of Phil Foden, and that's mainly for the sole reason that I don't know what Foden's minutes will be like. With Foden going on a late run in the Euros with England and playing near enough every game, I feel like his game time at Man City will be managed at the start of the season, and he won't be starting every game. And even if he does start, he might be brought off in around the 60th or the 65th minute. And I'd much rather go for Eze, who's probably guaranteed to play the entire 90 minutes for Palace, who actually have some really nice fixtures. Brentford away is that first game. I can see Eze getting an assist or a goal in that game. And with Mateta being with the France Olympics squad, I can't see him starting the first few games. So Eze could even be on penalties to start the season, which if he is and they get a penalty, again, that could be a guaranteed goal. With Eze being on set pieces as well, he's on every corner and every free kick. Having Anderson in defence and both of them linking up, it's a really nice double up from Palace, in my opinion. And I think Eze is going to be in a lot of starting drafts come the start of game week 1. Moving on to Cole Palmer, this is actually the first time that I've had Palmer in my draft, and I don't know why I didn't have him in sooner, whether it's because I didn't have enough funds, but I've managed to free up funds and bring in Palmer, and I'm actually glad I have because of the run of fixtures that Chelsea have. Last season, Palmer scored so many goals. I know 9 of them were penalties, but he got 22 goals in total, and with Man City as that first game, yes, that's a tough one, but after that, the run of fixtures is incredible. And that's why I've doubled up on the Chelsea attack. I feel like Chelsea this season, even though they have a new manager, I need to see what they're like in pre-season, but Chelsea looked strong in the first pre-season game. And I know Palmer wasn't playing in that because he went on that late run in the Euros, but I think Palmer is pretty much guaranteed to start every game and play the majority of minutes. And with him being on penalties, I think I need to have Palmer in because going against Palmer this season is like going against Haaland last season. Palmer is the most owned player in FPL this season as it stands. And I just think his ownership is going to go up and up and up, even with the new manager, just because he's on penalties and last season he played so well. Moving on to Nkunku then. He's not come out of my team. Again, I've had him in since my first draft. And Nkunku looked so strong in the first preseason game. I know when this video goes live, they'll have played a couple of more preseason games, but I'm recording this before they've played the next preseason. But Nkunku got a goal in that first preseason game and looked so sharp and so good. And for 6.5, if I do decide to move away from Palmer, at least I still have Nkunku in there as that Chelsea attacker. I think Nkunku's going to be playing more of that central role as a number 8, maybe a number 10, and I think he's going to be on the score sheet quite a lot this season for Chelsea. Last season he picked up that injury, so wasn't playing as much, which is why I think his price has come down from last season, and he's moved into that midfield position instead of a forward. So for 6.5, he's an absolute steal in my opinion. And then the last player is Anthony Gordon from Newcastle. Gordon scored in near enough every home game last season, and at 7.5 with Southampton as that first game of the season at home, I think going against Gordon wouldn't be smart on my part. I really liked what I saw from Gordon last season, and I know that there were links of Gordon potentially moving to Liverpool, but nothing ever surfaced on that front, and I can't really see him leaving Newcastle this season. So with him staying at Newcastle, and there's not really too much competition for that left wing position. I know there's Harvey Barnes, but out of every player at Newcastle, I think Gordon's the one player that Eddie Howe won't be dropping. So Gordon is probably guaranteed to start near enough every single game. And the fixtures that Newcastle have to start the season are really promising, and Gordon can get quite a few returns from them. So as a player that I want to keep in my team and not have to transfer out after 1 or 2 game weeks, I've gone with Gordon just on the sole fact of last season being so good and the fixtures looking really promising for Newcastle. But I want to know your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of that midfield 5? And is there anybody that you would replace from the and who would you replace them with? So finally moving on to the forwards, and there is quite a big change in here. I've brought in Muniz instead of Ollie Watkins. Now with Ollie Watkins, he was 9 million, and I feel like that is a lot to spend on a player who last season didn't have the best start to the season. In his first 5 games, he got 2 assists and wasn't really on the score sheet that much. And with Villa having Arsenal as that second game, I don't want to take that risk of bringing in Watkins and him not delivering. Whereas with Muniz from Fulham, yes, they have Manchester United as that first game, but then they have Ipswich and Leicester as the second 2 games. I think it's Leicester in game week 2, Ipswich in game week 3, which are 2 really nice fixtures. And then even after that, the fixtures are quite nice, apart from Newcastle in game week 5. Game week 7 is when it gets a bit tougher when they have Manchester City, but by then I will have probably taken Muniz out. But I want Muniz in for that Leicester and Ipswich game because I feel like he will return in both of those games. And I've taken Watkins out for him for that sole reason. I've also stuck with Alexander Isak from Newcastle. With Isak being that penalty taker and probably that number 1 striker for Newcastle, with the fixtures that they have, I think doubling up on the Newcastle attack is the best thing for me to do. And that's why I've gone for Isak. I think if they can get penalties, that's perfect. But with Southampton as that first game, and Isak being that starting striker, I can see him getting a goal or 2 in that game, as well as some of the other games that Newcastle have to start the season. So not much has changed up front apart from Muniz coming in for Watkins. But again, I want your thoughts in the comments. What do you think of that forward line? Would you stick with Muniz, or would you still go for Watkins, or go for somebody like a Darwin Núñez, a Cody Gakpo, or even a Chris Wood for the same price as Muniz? So there we have it, guys. That is my newly updated team and some of the changes that I have made. So I want your thoughts in the comments. What do you think about me finally bringing in Cole Palmer and that whole midfield that I have? And what do you also think about me taking out Ollie Watkins finally? Do you think I've made a mistake there and should try and get Watkins back in? Or is there any other players that you think I should bring in instead of Muniz in that position? As always, if you did enjoy the video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are new. And until next time, thank you for watching.